purity, abstinence, virginity, all of which are symbolized by a single white rose. Another characteristic that the previously mentioned all share are the aspects of life that influence the American youth in whether they remain pure and untouched or indulge in sexual behaviors. These influences include religion, politics, media, and education. John Witt states in his book, The Big Picture, we are heavily influenced by opinions of organizations to which we belong, such as church. Religion can have a huge impact on a person's sexual behaviors and beliefs. Each religion has different ideas that can mold a person's mindset on the idea of premarital sex. In the perspective of traditional Judaism, sex and reproduction are the holiest of acts one can do, and Judaism also prohibits sexual relations outside of heterosexual marriage. Then, the Catholics teach that the flesh is the hinge of salvation. Meanwhile, Islam believes premarital sex is considered sinful. Buddhism does not define what is right and what is wrong in absolute terms when it comes to sexual topics. Hinduism believes any act of sex between consenting adults is not inherently sinful. Hinduism views the idea of sex as expressive and healthy, just as long as the people involved are consenting adults. As for Christianity, sex is not highly emphasized and is considered by some to be evil, while celibacy and virginity were highly praised. Thus, the idea of purity balls was born. Purity balls are Christian ceremonies where fathers and daughters get all dressed up and vow to protect the virtue of the daughters. These functions also help strengthen bonds between fathers and daughters. The girls come and dance with their fathers and sign a pledge that states that they will remain pure until marriage. Their fathers then vow to protect the virginity of their daughters, as they see it as a sacred being, or object, or thing. The idea of a sacred object, as defined by Witt, implies significance beyond the object or experience, in this case virginity, to a larger order or meaning. Sacred things convey a sense of awe, and we are called upon to treat them with reverence and care, or in this situation, protect and save it. Despite the belief that a girl's virginity is sacred, Paula Rothenberg points out that there is no idea on whether girls who attend purity balls remain abstinent until marriage. Also, an adolescent health study found that STD rates were significantly higher in communities with a high proportion of pledgers. Peter Behrman, a sociologist at Columbia University, believes this to be so because pledgers are less likely than non-pledgers to use condoms, so if they do have sex, it is less safe. On the concept of condom use, like it or not, condoms are our only protection from STDs and unplanned pregnancies for those who are sexually active. Politicians, preachers, and priests, however, are spreading that the word from above is, condoms don't work. Apparently, even the Vatican is joining fundamentalist Protestants to spread the word against condoms around the globe, according to Kat the Pollitt. It would appear that these so-called experts on the usefulness of condoms preach against them in hopes that youths will not indulge in sex. In reality, the influences of these politicians, preachers, and priests are causing youths to have unprotected sex if they are to indulge in the act. To continue on the topic of politicians, they too influence youth into having sex, protected or not, or politicians influence adolescents to remain celibate. Different political parties, such as the two mostly talked about, Republicans and Democrats, each view the concept of adolescents having sex in unique ways. In the article Red Sex, Blue Sex by Margaret Talbot, she explains these beliefs of our nation's social liberals as a whole. Social liberals in the country's blue states tend to support sex education and are not particularly troubled by the idea that many teenagers have sex before marriage, but would regard a teenage daughter's pregnancy as devastating news. And the social conservatives in the red states generally advocate abstinence-only education and denounce sex before marriage, but are relatively unruffled if a teenager becomes pregnant, as long as she doesn't choose to have an abortion. These politicians publicize their views through the use of public media. Not only do politicians use such advertising techniques, but so do screenwriters and songwriters with the aid of television and music. Everyone has heard the expression, sex sells, and it's true. Ever notice how music tends to be about love and sex? Well, That's because it really does sell. This tactic also refers to American television and movies. Take the television show The Secret Life of the American Teenager, for example. This ABC Family original series focuses on a high school underclassman girl who gets pregnant after her first time having sex. The show follows her and her friends as they struggle with complicated sex lives and high school marriages and all the implications brought along with those two lifestyles. Also, the box office hit Juno follows a girl who gets pregnant while still in high school. Unlike in The Secret Life, the girl in the movie gives her son up for adoption. These two examples demonstrate the implications of partaking in sexual acts at such young ages, and they influence the American youth in their sexual behaviors, and as Witt states in his book, children are more likely to determine their own needs based on their media and peer contacts. The majority of peer contact occurs within the walls of education. The school system, too, influences youth in the aspect of abstinence, mainly through sex education programs. There is debate on what approach to sex education is the best method, either to preach abstinence only or to include sex safety tips. According to Rothenberg's book, in 1996, Congress allocated nearly $500 million for public schools nationwide to adopt sex ed programs that advocate abstinence only. Today, all but a few states use government money for classes that basically warn against any sexual activity outside of marriage. Within these programs, the concept of condoms being part of the curriculum is also highly debated. More so, the word from above that I mentioned earlier, condoms don't work, is being taught to the students enrolled in the abstinence-only sex ed classes, and according to Pollitt, these classes are favored by the religious right and funded by the Bush administration. $117 million of your annual tax dollars at work. Then, Talbot mentions, a new Abstinence Plus curriculum urges abstinence while providing accurate information about contraception and reproduction for those who have sex anyway. And to bring the conversation back to Pollitt, she ends her article, Is the Pope Crazy?, with a strong quote. It's bad enough to argue that condoms are against God's will, but to maintain falsely that they are ineffective in order to discourage their use is truly immoral, if not insane. Throughout this video, I have discussed the influences within our American nation that have the capabilities to alter the beliefs and behaviors of adolescents regarding sex. If you haven't already noticed, each of the main influences were introduced at the beginning: religion, politics, media, and schooling, as being linked together. Each pretty much mooch off the others in order to reach the target audience, American adolescents. Overall, some religions preach abstinence while others are loosely defined on the subject matter. Politics spread into the educational system, with programs that either rely only on the abstinence-only mind track or teaches students that condoms don't work and how celibacy is the only protection from sex implications. Meanwhile, some school districts have the Abstinence Plus curriculum in place, teaching students about the idea of abstinence and, for those who are actively having sex already, helpful safety tips. In addition, we discuss the influences that new media like television, movies, and music can have on American adolescents. Nevertheless, there are numerous influences all around us that can alter any aspect of our lives, including sexual decisions and actions. But the concluding statement of the article, Would You Pledge Your Virginity to Your Father?, says it best. The key to any treasure you've got is held by one person, you. I mean, after all, it is your white rose. So, after reviewing the content within this video, which road do you take? Is one road the high road that leads you to heaven, while the other sends you spiraling downward? Or do both paths lead you to the same destination?